So just jumping right into it here, I'll do a quick intro on myself. My name is Logan McCoy, and I'm the Vice President of Services here at CCB Technology. I've been with the company for, it's actually going to be 13 years in June. And I started on the sales side, moved over to the technical side about 5 years ago, and have loved it ever since. And have kind of become the resident semi-teams expert on some areas. I wouldn't say on the truly technical, but on the user side, just because I've used it for so long. And that's why I got picked to get to do this webinar. So it's a little bit about myself. I know a number of you joining because I saw the names filing in, and they looked very familiar. So I know a number of you know who CCB is, but for those of you that don't, just a really quick background. We've been in business since 1991, and we started as a traditional VAR, specifically serving the nonprofit market. There's a great story to that, but for sake of time, I won't spend too much time on that. But over the course of our time of being in business, we've evolved from being just a traditional VAR where we helped our clients procure the software and hardware that they needed to being a full managed services provider. So we serve clients all over the nation. We've actually worked with over 40,000 clients from Alaska and Hawaii, Illinois, New York. Basically, if you have a state in mind, we've probably worked with a client there. And we've worked with them on a number of different facets, whether, like I said, it's been our legacy hardware and software procurement that we've done with our clients, or within the last 10 years, the managed service, I would say, sector that we've since launched and worked with a number of clients across the nation. We actually just started working with a client here in Denver that got them signed up about just a week and a half ago. So something that's really great about our managed service practice that I always like to highlight, and it's listed right down there on the bottom right, is for the last 3 or 4 years, we've actually been listed as one of the top 150 MSPs in the nation. So even though we've only been doing it for about 10 years, it's actually something that we've, I think, overall done a really great job of and have grown over these last 10 years to be within the top 150. And we want to continue to actually grow in that area. So enough about me and enough about CCB. Let's just jump into what is Microsoft Teams. Now, I'm going to be spending most of the time doing a demo here, but I did think there might be a few of you on the call here who actually don't know what Microsoft Teams is, and you think, well, let's just dive right in and learn as much as I can about it. So to just give you a really quick backdrop here on what is Microsoft Teams. If you've been in the Microsoft ecosystem for any period of time, you'll know and probably have used to some degree Skype for Business and SharePoint, right? People have had mixed feelings about both of those. I'd say more positive on the Skype. A lot of people have enjoyed SharePoint and a lot of people have hated SharePoint for a number of different reasons. But they're both great tool sets. And what Microsoft was wanting to do was to take the communication aspect of Skype and marry that with the collaboration aspect of SharePoint. And so what they did within that by bringing both of those together was create Microsoft Teams, where they created essentially a single application or a single tool and solution to enable teams, whether you're located right within the office or you're dispersed, which a number of us are right now due to COVID, right? I know that for our company, we're all pretty much entirely working remote. I'm doing this in my office, but I'm one of the only ones here actually in the office. Most people are working from home, right? And so whether you're here in the office or you're away, it's the ability to communicate and collaborate in a seamless fashion. And you're going to see what that looks like specifically within the Microsoft Teams component that we're going to be focusing on today. So with that, let's actually jump into the demo itself. So I'm going to exit out of this presentation here, pull up Microsoft Teams here. And what you should see on the screen right here, and I did a demo probably about 2 weeks ago that just gave a very high-level overview of Microsoft Teams, which I would say, if you have the ability to go back and watch that, do that, because that'll give you a good overview of kind of what is Microsoft Teams and everything that's included here, because that's really found under the navigation panel here on the left side. But where we're going to be focusing primarily today is within this component right here, which is the Teams component, right? So the chat component, right, is kind of from the Skype perspective, essentially carried over into Microsoft Teams. If I were to jump in there, you'd say, oh, it looks very similar to Skype. It's just got a little bit of a different user interface. But for the most part, you could navigate it just like you would Microsoft Skype for Business. But so Microsoft Teams is where Microsoft, like I said, is looking to take a lot of that functionality of Skype and a lot of that functionality with SharePoint and bring it together. And a lot of people have the mindset of, okay, I'm going to go and create a team, and I'm going to create teams on an organizational basis, right? So you might say, if we take CCB, for example, I'm going to go in and create a team for services and for sales and for HR and administration, and then maybe for executive, right? And you're just going to create all these different teams, which you can do, and you can do that on an org basis. But a lot of where Teams really starts to shine, and my colleague, Tim, who's locked in this office back here, helping me with this webinar, we were just talking about beforehand, is where Teams really actually starts to shine is where you start to utilize it across departments. So you could actually create a team. For example, we want to start creating teams for webinars specifically. And within that, we'll create channels, and each channel will be its own webinar, which will essentially account for a project, which within that will have all of the communications that we've had. So it'll be one stop shop for all of the communication that's happened around this specific webinar, from the prep and the setup to the debrief. It's going to have all the files. So this PowerPoint, for example, we actually edited this PowerPoint within a team because we were able to, I wasn't able to upload it via VPN. Surprise, surprise, right? Sometimes you can have those issues with VPN. So I just pushed it right through Teams. We were able to edit it right there. So if that's done within a team, that file is stored right within there. And then as well, anything else that you might have that we're going to show actually within this that talks about app integrations and additional things like that, right? So what I'm going to walk you through here is actually being able to go ahead and create a team. So you can see here, I have a few different teams already, and I want to say this is actually my live Microsoft Teams. This is what CCB uses every single day. And so you can see we've got a CCB technology, which is our general Teams message for the entire company, right? So if I drill down in here, our CEO has started doing something where he's sending out daily threads every single morning. It's quick hit videos that just talk about, you know, something that he had on his mind that he wanted to share with the company, that he wanted to send as an encouraging note, or wanted to really kind of update the company on, hey, this is where we finished for the month of April, things like that, right? The daily thread is something that we do internally as a company that's really fun, where Olivia, who's on our marketing team, will shoot out a quick message every morning that just gets people talking and interacting. So it's kind of been silly questions like, if you could vacation in one spot, where would you go? If you could be one mythical creature, who would you be? Just because as we're remote, some of that connection and culture can easily be lost. And trying to do these things to help maintain that is one area that we're actually doing that, right? But you can see as well, I also have additional teams. So I've got a general services team for my department specifically. I have one geared towards projects. I have one for our SOW review process. And we've since moved away from this, not because we didn't like it, but because we just moved to a different solution in full for our CRM. And because of that, it just made much more sense to move our SOW process into that. There's actually a lot we miss about having it within Teams and within Microsoft Planner, which I'll show you actually what that looks like here later on. So these are a few of the teams that I have, and you can see, oh, that looks pretty nice and clean, right? But if you drill down into it, you can see there's a lot of channels included within there. And basically, a team can be built around, like what I talked about earlier, a department, and it can also be based around a project, right? So that it can be cross-departmental, like I was talking about with those webinars. And within each of those, you can go ahead and then create a channel. Now, within these, we've based this on the number of projects that we're doing. So on the last webinar that I did for this, I actually showed this very thing where what we've gone in, and every time a project gets signed, we actually go in and create a channel for that project to manage all of the communications, the files, all of the back and forth internal. It allows us to keep it succinctly within there, which is really nice, right? So that's a really quick overview if you don't know what they are, because I'm assuming most people on here know what Teams is and what a team is and what a channel is. But if you don't, that's a quick overview for you. But now to dive in actually to what we're going to start to go through and show you how it works and break down what each of it means, right? So let's say we want to go ahead and actually create a team. Now, a quick disclaimer I'll make is that I have the ability to create a team. Up until recently, a number of our team members didn't have that ability, and that's something that you can do on the back end from an administration side. And if you definitely want to learn more about that, we've done a lot of consulting around that recently of what that looks like to set that up so that only certain members of an organization can create a team, because you definitely, like SharePoint, and because this is using SharePoint on the back end, you really do want to make sure that you've structured this in a way that makes sense for your organization. Because if everybody has every right, then they can look at every file and they can create as many teams as they want. And from an administration side, 2 weeks down the road even, that's going to proliferate to 500 teams if you're a decent sized organization. And that becomes a nightmare to manage. And the biggest concern for that for a lot of organizations is, I can go in and easily create a team or delete a team if I need to, but what about the data that's in there? Do I need to move that out? Or what happens if that data gets leaked, and how can I control that data from getting leaked, right? Those are all questions that come up where you think, oh, it's not a big deal for my team to be able to create a team. It actually is if you think about it from a security and compliance perspective, for example, right? But let's say you do have the ability to go in and create a team. Right down here, you'll see as well, you also have the ability to join a team. So right within here, I can choose, like I said, if I click on that to create a team, or I can choose to join a team with the code. And I'll show you where those codes are, because if you're the owner of the team, you can go into the team and actually give that code to a member, or you can just go and actually request to be a part of that. And that'll come through as a pending request to the owner so that they can choose to accept you and admit you into the team, or decline you because you didn't show up to their birthday party and they don't want to be your friend anymore. So if I want to go ahead and create a team, I can do that right from scratch, or I can create it from an existing Office 365 group. For sake of time, I'm not going to go into Office 365 groups, but I would say if you are the administrator, or you're going to be somebody heavily involved in the development and rollout of teams, you should go do a little bit of research on Office 365 groups, because Microsoft really, in the Office 365 stack, or the Microsoft 365 stack as they're calling it now, they've really started to integrate 365 groups to be able to manage all the different aspects of what is in 365 now, from whether it's Outlook and Teams to SharePoint and OneDrive, all of that. And so it's a good thing to know and have a good foundational understanding of how those work and how they tie in. But we're just going to go ahead and just build a team right from scratch. Now from here, I can choose if I want that team to be private or public. And what it lists right on there is basically what it says. I can create a private team where I then would have to go and admit people, or they have to request to be added, or I can make it public and anybody within the organization can go and join this team if they want. So for example, that one that I had up here that was the CCB Technology, we made that one public just so that people could go in and obviously join that if they needed to, or they could just be automatically added. So I'm going to go ahead and create a private team. I'm going to name that Team Demo. I can add a quick description if I want to in that regard, and I can go ahead and click Create. Now what it's going to do is it's going to go ahead and create that team, give me a nice little compliment, and then from there it's going to ask me if I want to be able to add a team member. So in this case, I'm going to add my good friend Derek Matchy, who's our service desk director, and you can actually add multiple people. If I wanted to add Nick Lepore, who's our sales engineer, if I wanted to add Jacob Tarowski, if I wanted to add Tim Prust, who I mentioned earlier, I could add all of those members to this team all in one fell swoop. Click Add here. It's going to provision that. I can click Close. And now I've essentially created the team. You can see how that team pulled up right here. And every time you create a team, it's going to create a channel that's just listed as general. You cannot delete that channel. It's just listed there as general communications, basically what that's utilized for. So every time you create one, you're going to have that sub channel essentially pull up right there and then. Now, just to show you what managing a team looks like. So you can see what I did there is I clicked on the ellipses and then I clicked on Manage Team. Now there's a number of things you see I can do within this as well. I can either choose to add a channel, add a team member, leave the team, edit the team, get a link, all that kind of good stuff, right? But if I click on Manage the Team, it basically pulls up everything listed here that I would need to be able to, as the owner of that team, to manage that. So right within here, you can see that I'm an owner. You can see that I have members, and it lists guests. And I'm going to show you this at the very end at a high level, because we're going to be doing another webinar that's going to dive more into the back-end admin side even further within the Office 365 admin portal. But I can actually choose to allow external sources. So if I have somebody that I'm working with on a project that's not a part of the CCB organization, and my admin has allowed for that guest access to occur for Teams specifically, because you can allow them to chat with you under the chat window up here, but not actually be added to a team, and vice versa. So they do have that segmented out as a policy, which is really nice. And so if I do have guests though, it would list those guests down here. You can see very quickly I can add a member from right here as well. This is where I was talking about if you have those pending requests, because this is a private team. So if somebody goes in and submits a request, then they can go right in there and do that. And from that standpoint, then I would see those pulling up right here. Obviously, I don't have any, so there's nothing listed right there. Now, if I had created channels, this is where it would list all the channels right within here. So to give you an idea of what that looks like, let's jump into this one really quickly, which is the services project, the one that had a number of those channels. And you can see right within here what all of those channels are going to look like. So we actually have a number of channels listed within here, because again, these are for all those projects that we've done. And what's nice is that once a project is completed, we can go in here and hide that, because we might still want to save that communication and those files and that data for a certain period of time, but I don't want to necessarily have it pull up right in front. So I can choose to hide that, which is why those aren't checked. So for example, you can see ILO Family Dental is one right here. If you look on here though, it's not listed. Now I'd have to go all the way down to the 9 hidden channels that'll show what those projects are. Now a quick note about how many channels you can create, because that might be a question that you have. You can create up to 200 channels, and those would be standard channels as they call it, which I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. And you can create up to 30 private channels. I actually learned that the hard way because I was initially creating all of these channels in here as private channels because I thought, great, I'll only add the specific engineers that need to be added to this. And I quickly hit that limit because we typically have 30 to 40 to 50 projects open at any one time. So when I was creating these as private, I hit that very, very quickly because I thought it was the same number. I could create 200 channels, whether it's private or standard, meaning anyone can access that as long as they're part of the team. And that's not the case. You can only create 30 private channels, which is good to know, and how those can be utilized in different cases, right? So I can very quickly, though, see here, okay, is this an open and active channel? Can I show this for members? Do I not need to show it? You can see if there's no check mark there, that means it's a private channel. So you can see we still have a number of private channels, but those are going to start to phase out because I've already reached that max, so the rest of them will be standard, which is fine. This just shows what type it is, if it's a standard channel or if it is a private channel, right? It can show what the activity was around that. And then I can actually jump into here and do different things within the channel itself, whether I need to manage the channel, pin the channel, if I want to set certain channel notifications with that. All of those are different ways that I can go in and actually create and then manage that channel, right? So still jumping back into the team's administration side of things if you're the team owner. So if you jump into settings, this is where you're going to be able to do a number of different items. So let's say, for example, I want to be able to add a team picture, which is what we did for the main CCB technology one up here. I can choose to do that. If I want to edit the member permissions of what they can do within this team and within the channels, then I can choose to do that here as well. So if I want to allow them to create and update channels, for example, if I want them to be able to add and remove apps, to upload custom apps, to create an update and remove tabs, which tabs are, if I jump back down here, and I jump to this, tabs are like what's listed up here, right? Jump back into manage settings. That's essentially what that would be. So you can see right down here what all of that looks like. And you can see how as this is the team's demo, it automatically provisions and selects all of those. And I would need to go in and actually deselect that, which is what I had done for that services project one. For guest permissions, again, this needs to be turned on. So even if I choose to allow guests here, if it's not enabled in the back end, which I think it is for this tenant, I'll have to check, but it wouldn't work because, again, you have to enable that as an admin on the back end side. But then you would go in here, and this is not selected by default, so you would have to go in and actually select that. If you want to be able to create mentions, which just basically show members the options to the team, so on and so forth, you can quickly do that. If you remember me talking about that team code and you need to go find what that team code is to give it to somebody so they can enter it to join without you having to actually accept that pending request, you can go ahead and generate that team code from right there, and you can then push that onto that team member so they can join. If you want to be a stick in the mud and completely block all the GIFs and emojis and all the fun stuff that makes Teams, I think, lighthearted and great in a lot of ways, you can go and do that. You can't do that by member. Sometimes I think you wish you could because somebody only communicates in GIFs now, I feel like. I have certain team members that's all they talk to me now. So I wish I could do it by team member, but I can only do it essentially by the entirety of that team. Most of the time that's simply left on, right? Because Microsoft does a good job of really only allowing appropriate content in there. If you want to be able to create tags and who can add tags so that when somebody tags a specific person or a team, that pulls up a notification so that everybody's aware, hey, there's a new communication, so on and so forth, you can do that right within there as well. Analytics just basically break down essentially how many users are in here, what apps are listed, what's the data size that's already been utilized. It'll start talking as well about different activity metrics. So again, if I jump into this one, because there's going to be more analytics here. It's going to give you a little bit more about, okay, how active were they? What were they doing? Obviously, there's a dip here because this was the weekend. What was the messaging communication? Were there any meetings conducted? So it'll give you a little bit more insight into that, for example. And now a quick thing to note as well is the ability of what you get to see when you're actually looking at a team, if you're the owner or just a member, right? So you can see here, for example, I'm just a member of this team, but I'm the owner of the rest of these teams. So you can see here, I really only have these options. And even when I jump into manage team, I don't have many options listed there. As compared to if I click on one that I'm the owner, my ability to do a number of additional things, like for example, add a channel. wasn't able to do that here. I can't add a channel under the CCB technology because I'm not an owner of that. In this case, I am an owner of the services one. I can add a channel, add a member, all of those great things because I have those rights as the owner inherently, essentially, right? So that's more or less what you would look to do to go and actually create a team and then manage and administrate that team. Now let's jump in here and let's go ahead and create 2 channels because we talked about how we wanted to, in this session, actually talk about teams and then within that talk about channels. So like I said here, you've got that general one listed right here. I would just go right here, click on the ellipses, and it's going to allow me to add a channel. So I'm going to go ahead and add a channel listed right here. I'm going to do one listed as planner. I'm going to make that standard. So if you remember me saying you can make it standard or private, I could choose to do that. I'm going to go ahead and make this one standard, and then I'm going to automatically have that channel show in everyone's list. So if I don't check that, even though it's a standard channel and someone could go see that, it's not going to automatically show itself. They would have to add it to the team's channels essentially so that they could list that and that it wouldn't be hidden, right? So I'm going to go ahead and add that channel, and then I'm going to go ahead and add one more channel. And this one I'm going to add as I'm just going to title it survey because I'm going to show you what the integration looks like with SurveyMonkey so that you can see what it looks like with a Microsoft app integration and then what it also looks like with a third-party integration. So let's just title this one survey. We'll also do this as standard and we'll add that there. Let that provision itself out. Great, so now we've created these 2 channels. And what I'm gonna show you here at the very end is what it looks like to actually go in and add those. But if I wanted to be able to administrate these channels, I can just simply click on the ellipses and choose to manage what's shown in here. And you can see it's relatively basic, right? So channel moderation, do I want that on or off? And if I want that on, basically who gets to be the moderator and what do those communications look like of how they're going to be moderating that, right? For now, I'm going to leave that off. So it's relatively basic with how you're managing that channel. I'd say the fuller way to get a good picture, again, of the channels and how to manage them is under the Manage Team component. That's typically where if I'm doing bulk channel administration on all the different teams that I have, this is where I'm doing that, right? So that I can quickly see all the varying aspects of those channels within that team. So within this right here, what I'll show you what all of this looks like in adding Planner, because being able to create a team and administer a team is relatively straightforward and simple. And you can see the communications look very similar to how they look within a standard chat. The one big difference, and I noted this in the last webinar and I want to note it again, is that within here, when you're doing the communications here, is that they're doing inline type communications. So if I go ahead and I create a communication here and I start talking with Derek, and he then responds back to that. If he responds down here below, then it's actually going to start basically a new thread. And so you want to make sure a big change between the chat communication and the Teams communication is that as you create those new messages, that's why it says start a new conversation, it really does that. So if you're having a conversation and you want to add something to it, you typically don't want to go and start a new conversation, you want to reply to that conversation. There's a big difference in the Teams communication as compared to just the standard chat type communication, right? But so again, jumping into that app integration because I want to be mindful of time here. So let's say I want to go ahead and in this right here, I want to add Planner. Now, if you don't know what Planner is essentially Microsoft Project Lite. We've actually used it a fair amount, like I mentioned in the past, and it's been a great tool that we've utilized. So I'm going to create a new plan. Let's do that here. Let's just do test plan. I'm going to save that, and it's going to provision that right here. And basically what it does is it allows you to track varying projects because you can create multiple different projects based within here and then assign those projects to specific users. And even within that, assign specific tasks to certain users. So when you create this, this is essentially what it's going to look like right on the front end, right? But as you begin to build this out, I'll show you what it looks like within our SOW review too, because it's much more built out there. So if you see, I've just assigned this planner to the general channel tab here. And so when I jump into SOW Review 2, it's going to pull up all that we have. So essentially what I did is I created template tasks that we assign every single time a new scope comes through. And we have a certain process that we follow for that. And it's a nice little checklist that you would go in and create you would copy this template, create it as a new task. It would already have all of these members assigned because this is a redundant task, meaning even though the project might be new, the scope might be new, what we're doing with that is similar every single time, and the members doing that are every single time. So you can pre-stage that. And then within there, you can actually select what type of template bucket you want it to go into. So we work with a number of different types of projects. So I can choose essentially, I want this to go into the firewall bucket, which means that if I then later want to filter on all the firewall opportunities that are out there, I can go in and do that. And what's nice is once it's completed, it will show you all of the completed tasks right within there, right? So it's a great tool built right within here that is its own. And I think Microsoft's changing the name because they're integrating it with the Outlook tasks and all that. So I think they're changing it from Planner to tasks. I think that's coming here soon. But basically, it's a great functionality that you can use as a standalone application right within like Chrome browser, for example, but it also is built right within this as well, right within Microsoft Teams. And a number of people are really utilizing Planner because unless you're having to do heavy project management, this in many ways is oftentimes more than sufficient for what you need. And so there's a lot I could discuss on Planner, but just wanted to give you a quick overview of how easy it is to add that and how quickly then you can start working right within that like I could right here. I could go in and build a template right from here and then really start to move from that within this test plan. Now, the other component I wanted to show you really quickly was around being able to add third-party app integration. So that was obviously a Microsoft application. This is a third party. So let's say I want to be able to go and add a third party. In this case, I want to add SurveyMonkey. So I'm going to take SurveyMonkey. I'm going to add that right here. It's going to say all done. Now I'm disconnected. So now I want to say connect. I'm going to choose to connect to SurveyMonkey. It's going to say, great, connect to your SurveyMonkey. Once you've connected, close the pop-up. It's pulled this up to a different screen over here, so I'm not going to do that, but it does pull this up over here. Normally you'd have to log in, but I've already done this in the past, so it's not having me log in, just saying, great, you've properly connected, you're all good. So now I'm gonna go back to my team here, and I'm going to have it down here now. You can see I've got this little SurveyMonkey icon. And so I'm gonna go in here, and I'm actually going to add to the team, because I haven't added it there yet, and then I can go ahead and create a poll. So if I want to be able to create a poll right from here, I can go in and do that. So let's just say test, do A, B, and C. Let's create the poll. It's going to add that poll right within that team is what you're going to see right within there, which is a really great and nice feature and functionality. Now, for sake of time, because I know we're at 10:27, I was going to show you another way that we integrated it with SurveyMonkey, which is actually where we have this. I'll at least pull it over so you can see. We send this to a lot of our clients, which is our service opportunity questionnaire, which basically shows, hey, we want to find out more what kind of opportunity you're interested in doing with us so that we can be as efficient as possible as scoping this out for you. Well, one of the bummers about doing this within SurveyMonkey is that it would only send us a daily summary. So if somebody filled this out at 9 a.m., I wouldn't know about that till the next day at 8:30 a.m. Within Teams, I was able to integrate this so that every time someone filled this out, it would send a notification with how I configured it, and it would pull that up right away and tell me, hey, you've had somebody just complete this survey. So I kind of was able to work around what SurveyMonkey's limitations were to be able to do what I actually needed and wanted to do within that. So this has been a very, very quick demo. There's a lot more I would love to be able to show you on the backend administration side, but at least giving you an idea of what those integrations look like within both Microsoft apps and within those third-party apps. We're probably going to be diving in the subsequent webinars more into what being able to administer those apps, because you can choose, I want them to only have access to these Microsoft or these third-party apps or no apps at all, which is what we've actually done in the past. So jumping back into the PowerPoint listed right within here, how can CCB help, right? So there's three main ways that we can help: training and consulting, implementation and migration, and support. I would say 9 times out of 10, the main way that we're starting to work with our clients is on consulting, because there is a lot that goes into building out and planning for Microsoft Teams. You can roll it out, but then as I mentioned earlier, if it just proliferates into 500 teams and now you have a mess of managing that with all the data that's listed within there that is probably relevant and pertinent, you don't just want to delete, but now you have to figure out, where does this go and what does this look like? Is it even in the right place? We've come in and kind of developed a good consulting program around that to not just do the initial training so you know how to use it and what it looks like, but also to consult to make sure that when you're setting it up and you're implementing it, you're doing that in a right fashion, right? And we're actually running a special on that right now. And so if you're interested in learning more about, hey, I'd like to have more training or consulting around Teams, please reach out to your CCB account manager to be able to kind of help fill you in on what that specifically is. So really for you, if you've been on this webinar and you've listened and now you're kind of thinking, okay, so what? What should I be doing? There's three things you could do. First is I would look to schedule a demo. We do those all the time and we'd be happy to run through this with you a little bit further. If you'd like to talk about something more specific, we can conduct a consultation like I mentioned, or even help create a pilot test Teams or roll out all of Microsoft Teams for you. So it's 10:30 here. I just want to reach out and say thank you guys so much. I've got a few questions that I'm going to answer right here, but I know we're already at time, so hang with me for another minute or two as we go past here. I'll answer just a few. And what I would say is that if I'm not able to get to your question, because I see that there's a number of them here, I think there's over 15, what I would say is please also reach out to your CCB account manager, because we want to make sure we get these questions answered for you. So that being said, the first question someone asked is, how does this integrate with Microsoft Outlook? That was a question. And you might have seen earlier, if I jump back into it, I'll show you really quickly. There's a couple different ways, but specifically within Microsoft Teams, you're actually able to send an email from Outlook to Microsoft Teams to that specific channel. So if I want to be able to do that, I can simply click on the right ellipses, click Get Email Address, and then right from in there, it's going to populate that email address. I can copy and paste that, plug that into Outlook, and from there then have communications within Outlook that will go directly to this specific channel, and we'll have that communication when I respond. It can go back, all of that kind of great stuff is what one of those integrations look like within Microsoft Teams specifically. There's others in the Teams component as a whole, like within chat, but really specifically, that's what it looks like within the Microsoft Teams channel. The next question that I see here is, are you able to create sub-channels? I wish that you could. It's not something right now that you can do where you could go in and create, let's say I have this planner and then I want to create sub-channels of that. I can't go in and do that right now. So if I go ahead and I create another channel, like I could do right here, it's not going to end as a sub-channel under Planner or Survey. It's going to be its whole new channel. So right now they don't have a structure set up where you can create sub-channels. I wouldn't be surprised that that's not going to be something that comes out down the road, because I've had a number of clients say, oh, that'd be great if we could do something like that, because they have ideas of how they'd use it. But that's not something that's currently available at this point in time. Probably on the roadmap is what I would say Microsoft would say at this point. So all of that to say, those were the two questions I saw pop up there that I wanted to be able to answer. But again, if I wasn't able to answer your question, because I see there's a number on there, please reach out to your CCB account rep who'd be able to set up a call with Nick Lepore, our sales engineer, or myself to answer those for you further. So just with the last little bit here, I want to mention, if you've signed up for the series, you've already probably gotten the invites for those that are coming out for administering teams, and then how to kind of work with teams with people that aren't inside your organization. Would love to have you guys attend those as well. But we also do these leadership webinars, and we've had phenomenal attendance and feedback on these as well. These are primarily run by Patrick Booth, our CEO, and then also by Steve Shear, our Vice President of Sales. They do a phenomenal job. You can see what's listed up here of what the topics are. They've just had, I've been on pretty much every single one and have actually enjoyed them and learned a ton myself from them. So these are a few that are coming up here very soon. So with that, if you have any questions and want to reach out to me directly, my contact info is listed right there. So sorry for going just a few minutes over, but I hope you enjoyed it and was able to actually take a few things away from this Microsoft Teams dive. With that, thank you and have a great day.